Well, I went to the American Film Institute as a cinematography fellow, not directing, not writing. But while I was there, I got interested in writing and directing. I was basically, cinematography fellows were supposed to just shoot the little student movies. And then they had writing fellows, they had directing fellows. Well, so I read some of the material that the writing fellows were turning out. And I was, all these people had MFAs and, all kinds of degrees. And, had been writers, had been reporters, whatever. And I was reading the material and I was thinking, you know what, this stuff's not so good. I could do this good, I think. So I started monitoring the writing classes and started doing some writing. And then on the student movies, I would be the director of photography for some of these directing fellows. And I would end up having to help them a lot more than I really should have been helping them. I started realizing, well, you know what, some of these folks really don't have a clue. And I'm helping them a little too much. Maybe I should try doing this also. And fortunately at the AFI, they gave everybody an opportunity to shoot their own movie if they wanted to. So I ended up writing and directing this, what turned out to be this 45-minute little epic. And as I was doing it, I was thinking, hey, you know what, this is kind of fun. I like this better than being a cinematographer. I like writing better than being a cinematographer. I'm going to change my whole career direction and try to be a writer and maybe be a director, and that's what I ended up doing. So I ended up learning a lot about directing actors while I was there. Even though I only made that one short film, I still got to monitor a lot of things. I got to be involved with productions, and I kind of picked up some of the tricks of the trade, so to speak. Then I made a short film. I shot it in 16 millimeter. It's a little war movie. I co-authored a play called Tracers about the Vietnam War. And there was one segment that was not used in the play. And I thought, well, one of the reasons that we're not using it in the play is because it's just a little too cinematic. It's a little too big. There's too much stuff going on for it to really play well on stage. And so I just kept that for myself, and I decided to turn it into a little movie. And so I shot this little 16 millimeter movie, and directed it, wrote the script, and put a production together. We shot it. The Marines gave me permission to film at Camp Pendleton. I discovered a number of actors, like Brian Thompson, who's in Lionheart. That was his first foray into being an actor on film. We auditioned people, and Brian was in it, and a few other people, and it actually holds up pretty well. I watched it recently. So I did that, and that little movie, then I blew it up to 35 millimeter, and that's what got me my first traction in the business towards becoming a director, was because of that movie. I showed it to Sam Raimi, who was basically a buddy of mine at the time. He'd made Evil Dead and a couple other things, but he wasn't like the Sam Raimi of Spider-Man yet. And anyway, Sam really liked it. Sam showed it to Dino De Laurentiis. Dino liked it, so I got my first directing deal there. I showed it to Menachem Golan at Cannon Films. Menachem was impressed with it. Menachem gave me a directing deal. And then Jean-Claude saw it, and Jean-Claude liked it, and Jean-Claude thought, hey, maybe I should give this guy a shot. You know what, while the ambulance is out there, can somebody hand me my water and I take a little sip?
Sure.
And will the water be out of frame if I'm holding it down here?
No, that'll be fine.
Oh, it will, okay. I've been doing more talking this afternoon than I generally do in a month.
It's a lot of, when also we get energy. Oh, look at that.
So Jean-Claude saw my little movie Firefight, and he was impressed with it also. And I wrote Bloodsport, which was his first starring role, and I had never met him before. They were in Hong Kong filming, And I talked to him on the phone a few times in Hong Kong, and we decided, hey, when you're back in L.A., come on by the house. We should meet. So he did, and we got to be close friends just right away. We just hit it off right away, and I felt that he had a lot of potential. Once I got to meet him and talk with him and hang out with him, and he knew that I believed in him. I believed in his acting ability. I believed that he could become a movie star. I introduced him to friends of mine in the business, like Sam Raimi, for example. And Sam believed in him. In fact, I introduced him to Sam. I introduced him to another friend of mine, Chuck Farr, and Chuck ended up writing Hard Target. Sam ended up producing Hard Target. Jim Jacks, our executive at Universal, the executive at Universal who saw Lionheart and decided we're going to make an offer for Lionheart and put it out as a Universal picture. Jim Jacks was the executive on Hard Target, and that ended up being this big movie for Universal that Jean-Claude did. So I introduced him to a lot of people. We're all kind of up and coming in the business, and he knew that I believed in him, had faith in him. So he figured that I would be the right guy to direct this movie. First of all, they got me to write it, and I had a name as a writer at the time because I'd co-written Rambo 3, and I had a few other movies, Bloodsport. So Sunil Shah, the producer of Lionheart, and Ash, they were very, very anxious to hire me as a writer, but they were nervous about the directing part. And Jean-Claude told me that he actually got down on his knees and begged Sunil, please give this guy a chance. He's going to do great. Look, if he doesn't do, if he screws up in the first few days, okay, we'll replace him. In fact, Eric Carson was a producer on the movie, and Eric was there to, keep an eye on me also. And, in case things didn't go well, Eric could have stepped in and taken over because he was a certified movie director and directed a lot of movies. So he was there kind of keeping an eye on things, and he was there to, give me like fatherly advice, which he did. I'll hand it to Eric. He never tried to take over. He never tried to push me out of the way. He never told me what to do, or never came up to me and said, you're really screwing things up. He gave me a lot of good advice, which helped me out quite a bit on the movie. So basically, that's what got my directing career started in features, was Jean-Claude begging Sunil Shah to let me have a shot with Lionheart. Well, here's how it helped me with my writing. Being in the Marine Corps helped me because I ended up with some very good advice that's given to beginning writers or beginning screenwriters. Write what you know, or write about something that you love. Well, I knew the Marine Corps. I was in the Marine Corps for 3.5 years. I was in Vietnam for a year. So I knew about real life action stuff. Okay, like I knew soldiers. I knew about combat and tactics and all this kind of stuff. And so I ended up writing a Vietnam screenplay called Firebase, which was totally about, it was like 3 days at a fire base in Vietnam. And a lot of great characters in it, also a lot of big action. And it all felt, it had a grittiness, it had a reality to it. It wasn't written by somebody who had just watched a bunch of John Wayne movies. And that script got me a meeting with Sylvester Stallone. He was looking for somebody to co-write Rambo 3 with him, and he was really impressed with the script and impressed by the fact that I'd been in the Marine Corps. So in that way, it really helped me get a foothold in the business. And I sort of became this go-to guy for military movies for a while. Like I wrote an early version of G.I. Joe. I was hired by Warner Brothers to write G.I. Joe. This was a version that never really went anywhere, and then Warner Brothers lost the title. But I wrote that. There was a movie called Firebirds about Apache helicopters, and it was written by some Army colonels who knew about Apache helicopters, didn't really know how to write a screenplay. I was brought in to rewrite that. That ended up being a movie with, like, get this cast, it was like Tommy Lee Jones and Nicolas Cage were the stars of this movie. Turned out to be not a very good movie. They got the wrong director. There's a lot of things they did wrong, but even so, I was like the go-to guy. You know, we got a military project, let's bring this guy in. So it helped me in that way. And there's been a military aspect to a lot of my projects, like in Lionheart, we've got the French Foreign Legion. Well, I did a lot of research on the Foreign Legion for Sylvester Stallone. I was going to write a Foreign Legion script for him. Then as far as the directing, I found that it helped me. It doesn't help it, like, there's different kinds of directors, okay? But in the Marine Corps, you know, if you're a non-commissioned officer, which I ended up becoming, you end up giving orders, leading people. You're taught leadership. There's actually a NCO leadership course that I went to. So I never really saw myself as much of a leader when I was in high school, elementary school, but the Marine Corps kind of brought that out of me. And so, you know, when you're standing on a movie set and there's like 100 people standing there waiting for you to tell them what to do, that came in really handy. You know, I was able to actually say, okay, you do this, you do that. Makeup and hair, look at Harrison's hair, it needs some work. So it helped me in that respect. And look, there's plenty of people that have done these things without having been in the military. But I've just found, for me, it was helpful in a number of aspects. We were all, when we saw the first cut, the first director's cut, we were all quite pleased, because you don't know how well it's going to work until you cut it all together and you see it all play. And we all sat back saying, wow, this kind of works. It was actually a bit longer. The first cut was, I think it was about 2 hours and 15 minutes. And Sunil and Ash said, no, you got to make some cuts. We made cuts. We made more cuts. But everybody was pleased with it. We didn't know it was going to become this. It's sort of a classic, actually, for a Van Damme film. It's one of the classic Van Damme films. It's for fight films. It's pretty much become like a classic film. We didn't know it would go that far, but we thought we had something really good. And Sunil, who was certainly no spendthrift, was so pleased with the movie that he decided, let's hire John Scott. Because we were looking at some really low-budget composers first, and Sunil said, okay, forget that. We're going to get kind of a name Hollywood composer, and I want a full orchestral score. Because before that it was going to be, kind of a low-rent composer with synthesizers, and it was all going to be done really cheap. That's what was budgeted. And they put in, if I'm not mistaken, they upped the music budget to $250,000, which was a pretty good amount of money then to produce a score for a movie. So that pretty much showed that Sunil was confident. Sunil felt good about it. And then the real test was getting it set up for distribution, because there was no U.S. distribution for the movie. There was foreign distribution, because Jean-Claude had already become a bit of a star in France, especially. Sami Hadida had picked up the film for France. It was released as Full Contact in France. Germany picked it up, England. Jean-Claude was more popular throughout the world than he was in the U.S. The studios were still kind of squeamish about him. They still figured He's the blood sport guy. He's the kickboxer guy. He does canon movies. And then via my contact with Jim Jacks, we were able to show some footage to Jim Jacks, who was an executive at Universal. And Jim ended up becoming kind of a big shot at Universal, ended up becoming a producer. He produced the Mummy movies, produced Day of the Jackal. He ended up producing a lot of big movies for Universal. But he saw the film, and as I mentioned in the commentary, he was really touched by the scenes of Jean-Claude with the little girl, with Ashley Johnson. And he's the one that took the film to his higher-ups at Universal and said, we should pick this up for U.S. Distribution. They basically picked it up for U.S. and Canada. And that was kind of a big deal for Sunil and the guys at Imperial Entertainment. I remember them all going to the meeting. They all had their suits on, their ties. They're Indians from Kenya, and basically they didn't have that Hollywood casual thing about them, where you just wear blue jeans and jacket, and you're good to go with the president of Universal. No, they had suits, and everything was all looked like they were going to church or to a funeral, and they went into Universal, and sure enough, ended up making a deal with Universal, and then the movie did good. We had some previews, we had some test screenings, and audiences they responded. They cried at the end. I sat in on these, and you could see, look over to the side, and you could see people wiping tears from their eyes. And then when Jean-Claude wins that final fight, there's applause. People are cheering. People are cheering at the end when he comes back. So the movie worked, and we got the big Universal release in North America, and the movie did really well. And then I ended up doing another movie with Jean-Claude, not immediately afterwards, but a year later. I had developed a movie called The Corsican Brothers for Canon. And what's interesting, too, is Canon, Menachem Golan, who was a bit of a genius in his own way, but he just didn't get Jean-Claude, even though Jean-Claude made money for him with Bloodsport and Cyborg. So I wrote this double role for Jean-Claude. He was going to play twin brothers, and we developed it for Canon originally. It was their script, and then he decided, no, we're not doing that. Van Damme, this guy's no actor. This guy can't play one role, let alone two. So we're not making this movie with him. And I ended up getting the movie back from him, and I turned around and sold it to Moshe Diamant and Michael Douglas, and we ended up making Double Impact. But it was just interesting that during the commentary I was mentioning that in Jean-Claude's earlier movies, people just didn't see him being anything more than a karate guy that was going to basically have a lifespan of 5-10 years, do a few karate movies, then he's history. And in Lionheart, you could see that there was something more going on. You could see that he had the sensitivity, he had the acting chops, besides the physicality, besides being able to do the fight scenes. And that's what led to him getting the deal to do Double Impact, and that's what led to then bigger movies like Universal Soldier, which was a TriStar, and then Hard Target for Universal, and there were more movies for Universal, Time Cop. But Universal they first really got their first real taste of Van Damme was Lionheart, which they liked so much, and they believed in him so much that they actually bought the movie for release in North America. Well, I have already gone into new territory for myself. In the last few years, I wrote 2 dog movies. Okay, movies that basically had a dog. The lead character is a dog. And One of them was called Metro Dog, and it was about these dogs that ride the metro trains in Moscow. And that was bought. Some financier bought it, and I was supposed to direct it. And I actually went to Belgrade, Serbia, and we were doing some pre-production, but it ended up not happening. The financier got cold feet. Who knows, he may come back. But then I wrote another one. I co-wrote a script about a dog with my friend Boaz Yakin. And Boaz is somebody I've known for 25 years. He was also very good friends with Lawrence Bender and Scott Spiegel. And we wrote a movie about a bomb sniffer dog in Afghanistan. So again, I'm bringing some of my military experience to bear. And the dog's handler is killed in Afghanistan, and the family of the handler adopts the dog. The dog comes back to the U.S. He's kind of messed up psychologically. He's got PTSD. Dogs do come down with PTSD. The family adopts him, and then the family gets in trouble with some bad guys, and it's something that's tied into Afghanistan, and dog comes to the rescue. And this is it's basically a hero dog movie. It's basically Rin Tin Tin. It's a dog that kicks butt, and we got this movie. Boaz and I wrote it as a spec script. It got optioned by MGM. MGM made the movie. Boaz directed it, and it's going to be released January 30th. So I'm doing dog movies now, okay? But Max is the one about the bomb sniffing dog. It's basically Rambo with the tail. You know, the dog is this combat veteran from Afghanistan, comes back, he's kind of damaged, he's got PTSD, and ends up, people mess with him, people mess with his family, and he ends up kicking some butt. We've got a lot of action in it. There's bad guys, and the bad guys have bad dogs also, and Max has got to take down the bad dogs and take down the bad guys, and it's like I said, it's Rin Tin Tin for a new generation. So that's the direction I've moved into recently, and I'm hoping that I still get to make that Metro Dog movie. The advice that I always give to up-and-coming directors, well, for writers, I already said, basically, write what you know. That's what I did with these military scripts. Or write about something that you love. And I love dogs, okay? So I've ended up writing these dog movies, and what do you know? They got sold. For directors, my advice is always take an acting class. Just take one acting class. But take an acting class just so you know what those people are going through. So that you don't end up treating them like they're parrots or robots or marionettes. Understand what the process is like. Now, I took an acting class many, many years ago, actually, and it was almost accidental. I had a girlfriend whose dad taught an acting class. He said, well, you're interested in directing, you should come and be in my class. So I did. I went to a number of those classes, and I learned just how hard it is to be an actor, and just how amazing it can be when you connect with the material, and suddenly there's something coming out of you that you didn't know was there. There's a character inside you that's saying those words that somebody else wrote, and you become another person. And it's important to understand that. That's why I was able to get such good performances from Jean-Claude and Harrison in Lionheart, because I treated my actors with respect, with dignity. I made sure that they had what they needed. I made sure that the crew is important too, but I do not let the crew trample on my actors. And the actors feel comfortable because of that. They're in a comfort zone, and it brings out their best. Because when you're acting, you have to forget that there's a camera and a sound man and makeup people, and all these people are standing around you. You've got to put yourself into that scene, into that character, into that situation. And anything that detracts from that is going to mess up the performance. So to me, that's really key for anybody who wants to direct. And there are people who become good directors who've probably never had an acting class in their life. I'm not saying that this is a rule for everybody, but it's one thing that I would highly recommend is learn. If you're going to be working with actors, learn what they're going through. Understand what they're going through when you say action and the camera's on them.